Welcome to Seaview Circle, our recap podcast where we review our favorite TV shows and movies of the past, present, and possibly the future. And we do this all in service to our end goal of determining how highbrow or lowbrow our viewing taste is.
That is true, Doug. And along the way, we also munch on a bunch of vintage fashions and styles and filming locations. And I tell you, we got a lot to get through today. Now, if you have been watching our podcast, you know that in the second half of our second season, we've been covering, appropriately, season 2 of Knots Landing, which is the longest running nighttime serial of its era.
The show is streaming on Plex and Roku for free, all seasons, all episodes.
Amazing! Now, if you've been following our podcast this season, you know that we've been covering these season 2 storylines sort of character by character. So each of our podcasts, we've been featuring 2 or 3 episodes that include the featured character of our podcast. There's only one character that we have yet to really dive into. I don't know. Can you guess?
Yeah, it's a little hint on what we're wearing.
Yes, it is Mr. Sid Fairgate, or as he's often referred to as
Saint Sid.
So for this podcast, we are going to cover Sid's storyline from the beginning to the end of season 2. We're going to start off with episode 1, Hitchhike, go into part 2 of Hitchhike. We're also going to touch upon, of course, episode 12, Players, and then, of course, the season finale, Squeeze Play, which, there's a reason why we save this for the very end, kids. If you see the show, you know.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, then you better wait to the end for the cliffhanger, okay?
So at the end, we're going to be giving our Browmeter scores for each of those featured episodes, and then, even more exciting, we're going to be tabulating the scores for all 18 episodes, and we're going to give you the final tabulation for season 2 of Knots Landing.
Yeah, it's a long run for getting that. It's a long time to get those Browmeter scores.
Now, in retrospect, we probably should have started the entire season 2 coverage with the Hitchhike episodes because they really do set up the storyline moving forward for season 2 for all of the characters. But if we had done that, then we wouldn't have landed on this magical coincidence here, kids. And trust me, we did not plan this. But today is November 20th, 2025. And the original airing of Hitchhike Part 1 was exactly 45 years ago today.
That's crazy.
Tonight.
That is actually magic, I think.
It is. What do you call
the Cosmos.
The Cosmos.
Three-Eye Atlas.
Three-Eye Atlas was following us.
Yes.
Was saying. All right. So without further ado, let's jump right into all of the drama.
Right after you like, subscribe, and comment to tell us how much you appreciate our over-the-top set design today.
Yes. We'll wait. So, Doug, what do you want to have for dinner tonight?
I'm kind of feeling very Japanese.
Japanese?
I think Japanese food would be good.
You're thinking like noodles Japanese or sushi Japanese?
I like rice. I like rice dish usually. And I'm in the mood for some like sushi sashimi.
Oh,
It's really good.
I give some sashimi. Anything. I love sashimi.
Sashimi?
They did it. Okay. All right, let's get started. All right, so our first episode is Hitchhike Part 1. This is written by Don Murray and directed by Edward Perrone. He has actually directed some other episodes in the previous season as well. This is the first time, though, that Don Murray, I think, is written for Knots Landing. It's kind of intriguing as we know the course of this season. So what happens in this first wonderful scene of the season?
Well, what's interesting about the beginning of this, it's kind of setting a tone, and it's very cinematic. The 2 episodes, they feel more like a Columbo than a Knots Landing.
Right.
Musically, the music's very like...
They went for it.
Yeah.
They went for it.
Did we say it was kind of film noir-y too? I don't know. It's
this
got that...
one, both I'd say the beginning and the end of the season definitely has this noir touch to it.
Yeah,
sure.
and even just down to the way that people look too. I don't know. It's just something in it. But what we do have is Sid is driving back from San Luis Obispo, where he's been helping his sister Abby.
Who we've not met yet.
Right, we have not met her, but Abby is divorcing or separating from her husband, and she's apparently en route to San Diego. Right. So he's gone up there to help her. And, San Luis Obispo from, say, LA area would be about a 2-hour drive, probably, depending on traffic. And when we see Sid driving...
He's pulling up to a stoplight, I guess, and there is a young young lass there who kind of flags him down, and she is looking for a ride. She's a hitchhiker.
Yeah, she's a hitchhiker.
Hence the name of the episode.
Yeah, it's called Hitchhike.
I think she asks, "Oh, where are you headed to?" And he says, "Knots Landing." And then she says, "Oh, I need to go further," or something like that. I can't remember, but whatever happens, he turns her down.
Yeah, he does not want to take her.
Yeah.
So and I guess he's still waiting there, or maybe he pulls
There's a
forward
red
little.
light. Yeah,
there's a red light. And then at that moment, there's these kind of young teenage, do we say thugs? I don't know.
What's it called? Ruffians.
Ruffians, who are kind of hassling her.
Yeah.
And
you can see through the rearview mirror because it's still, relatively
yeah.
close.
So
she screams, maybe.
Or something's going on. And so he agrees, like, oh, you can
At
get
that
in
point,
the car.
he opens up the door of his T-Bird and lets her in.
Yeah.
So this is all kind of intercut with these scenes over at Diana's high school where there's like this talent show going on. And so we kind of jump back and forth with this scene. But when we come back, we meet this young lass. Her name is Pam.
Pam, yeah.
And she's super precocious.
Yeah.
She asks Sid what his name is. And when he says, she's like, "Oh, El Cid. I think I saw that movie on TV last week."
Yeah. She's like, El Cid, I saw it 3 times. I think something like that.
She is played by an actress named Ruth Cox, who I didn't really do a lot of investigation into, but I do know that she's worked quite a bit, and I've seen even more recent photos of her. I think she was a real scene stealer in this particular 2-part opener, and yet you don't like her because she's really tarnishing, like, the most likable character, maybe, if you will, on the show, Saint Sid, right? Suddenly she asks, "So, Sid, how much money do you got on you?"
She said, "Have you got $100?
And then he's like, "Well, I don't know." She goes, "Can I have it?"
Yeah, it's really cheeky. She's
And
super
he's
cheeky.
picking up on her cheekiness as well, right?
Yeah.
I think he does say, "Listen, I could go buy you a bus ticket," because her excuse is that she has to get home to her mother or something like that, right? But that's not good enough for Miss Pam, you see, because this is an extortion plot here.
And she comes out and says, "Well, if you don't give me $100, I'm going to scream the R word."
Oh, yes.
And he's like going like, "Oh, you're kidding me."
Yeah, he's like, "You've got to be kidding
Yeah,
me."
because again, here's Sid, all shucks, a goody goody.
I mean, he could be played by Jimmy Stewart, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
If
he's
Jimmy Stewart was on
very
TV.
naive in many ways.
There's a moment where they pull up next to a Pioneer Chicken, of
Yep.
course, and there's actually some policemen that I think are parked outside. So Sid says, "Oh, he calls her bluff." He says, "Oh, well, now's your chance." Well,
She screams.
she takes him up on that offer. She screams that word that begins with an R.
Yeah.
And this is where that moment is really expertly cut with the scenes at Diana's school where she is singing, If They
You Could See Me Now.
right?
Yeah.
And it's really kind of ups the Browmeter score right away.
Well, it is super cinematic. It feels
Yeah.
like we're watching a movie rather
Right.
than a TV show.
Right.
At that
And
point
to
here.
know what this character is and how he is now being put into this position that is really going to tarnish his reputation. And it's all because he was doing something nice, or he thought he was.
Yeah.
Oh,
And listen, a lot we all can relate to that. We've all probably done nice things in our lives at times.
I
And
loaned
then-
$400 to someone at my first job. Never got that back.
Right.
That was a lesson learned at age 16.
Yep. Sometimes these things come
They come back to bite you.
Come to sting you.
We get to the police department, and it appears like the chief of police already knows Sid because, he is a business owner in Knots Landing, so there must be, some previous relationship there. And so he's like, "What are you doing here?" He reads the arrest report or something from the officer, and he's like, "What?" Like, he cannot.
Yeah, you can tell he does not believe that this is for real.
So-
and doesn't Karen walk in too to
right.
kind of
This is like
spring him?
maybe a scene later or whatever, because I guess Sid has called Richard, who's
'Cause,
not
he's
a criminal lawyer.
No, but he's a lawyer and he's his friend, right?
Right. He's available in the middle of the night, right? So
Yeah.
Richard and Karen come in, and again, the police chief is kind of like, "Don't worry about this. This is all going to blow over." And I think Richard says that as well. So I think Sid's feeling pretty confident. And then Pam can see that this dude's getting special treatment. And so I don't know why, but there's like a press photographer in there already.
Yeah, that made no sense to me. I don't think they would ever have a press photographer in a police station. But anyway, in television.
In television world, it sets up this great moment where Ruth Cox as Pam just completely harangues things for Karen.
Yeah, she decides like, oh, I'm going to like put the screws to him while this camera person.
Yeah, she's just like over the top acting. What does
she says, hey, lady, let me tell you about your husband.
Yeah.
You know, like he picks up teenage girls or something to that effect.
Which, of course, Karen, absolutely does not believe in this moment. So there's like this kind of energy going on, and it's all caught on camera.
Yes, they have snapping with the old school flash.
Yeah, it's kind of like, again, like a film noir moment.
Yeah,
because you wouldn't see that probably in 1980.
No.
So the following morning, he's been released, obviously. I don't even know if there was bail or if he was just released on his own recognizance or whatever.
Same day, probably.
So they're having breakfast in the morning, the Fairgates, and they're talking, I think, more about kind of Abby catching up the audience, really, on the Abby situation, how she's coming down. And then Karen switches the topic over to, the more important thing going on, which is that he's facing assault charges. So Karen says, do you think Richard can handle this? Like, what is his approach?
Oh, he's going to go meet with her.
She says, do you think it's a good idea? And he says, oh, I was thinking of doing the same thing.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing the same thing. And then Karen is just like, are you crazy? This is the kind of woman that's going to concoct something.
Right. You do not want her alone with Sid again.
Right. Karen gives all the warning signs to all of this in the episode.
All season long.
All season long. True.
Little Saint Sid is in over his head.
Right. And it ain't called women's intuition for nothing.
Hello.
Okay?
Hello. So later on that day, I think Abby has come and they have this big get together where all the neighbors come over to meet her and also to kind of like get the story about what's going on here with Sid. And it's at that moment where Sid walks into the kitchen and he finds Karen like secretly making a phone call. I guess one of their friends knows maybe a good criminal lawyer.
Yeah.
And Sid kind of stops her and is like, what are you doing? And again, she's just expressing her thoughts. Like, I don't think Richard is up for this. And he's like, hey, don't worry about it. Like, there's nothing to worry about. He hasn't done anything wrong yet.
Yeah. Well, we know where that's going. So the following morning, we have this funny scene where Karen is woken up by the plastic 4-valve trumpet, which I know very well.
It's Abby's son, Brian, right? Their nephew, who they're staying with them, right?
Staying
they're crashing for a couple days here. And he's delivered the newspaper.
Yeah, he's delivered
He thinks he's doing, a wonderful thing for his aunt, but not when his aunt and uncle are on the front page.
Right. They look down and then they see the photograph that was taken from when
the police department.
At the police department. And it's bad.
Yeah.
Especially, I guess, Knots Landing being such a small place. Everybody in town knows what's going on. They're all talking.
Karen knows now that Sid is persona non grata numero uno in Knots Landing.
We see this in one little scene where Laura is trying to show the house that eventually Abby ends up buying or leasing. And the people see the name Fairgate.
Right.
And they go, oh no, they don't want to look at the house.
Yeah. The kids all know this because they're all experiencing this at school. And also Sid has experienced this at Knots Landing Motors pretty quickly because the customers and even some of his own
staff are like talking to his service department are like this. The ladies.
So all of this negative attention is enough for Karen to make that call to their friend. And they get this recommendation for a experienced criminal defense attorney. And that's when we have Stan Lesser entering into the picture. Karen goes to meet with Stan, and she brings to him the newspaper. So she reads this article, and it really shows this side of Pam, who is the plaintiff in this case here, right? That she is just letting it all on the table, right? And we find out in a later scene, I guess, with her mother, who's played by Conchata Farrell, who's like total scene stealer, right?
Yeah, she's super
She's amazing. She is saying, oh, yeah, we're going to lead this case through honesty. That's what she says. We're going to wear all of our dirty underwear on the outside.
Okay, that's a visual that I don't want to see.
Exactly. So in this article, I guess Pam is saying that, she's not perfect. She's had boyfriends, right? This infuriates Karen because she's seeing that she's using this kind of appearance of being maybe a little bit of a, experienced young lass as like a positive for her, while Sid is like the total saint who would never do any of this. So she is PO'd, but I guess Stan tries to calm her down and says, hey, listen, even if Richard is not himself a criminal attorney, like if he gets in over his head, he's still working with a reputable law firm and they will back him up. So again, this is all kind of staving off maybe some more attention into what Richard's doing because while this is all going on, Richard is trying to figure out how to get a leg up on this case and he makes a very bad move.
Yeah, very bad move. He goes over to Pam's house. Somehow he finds out where she lives.
Now, where do the messengers live?
Well, what's so funny, the messengers, you see the street, so it's Marine. I knew it was Marine. And of course, it looks like old Santa Monica. It's 3rd Street in Ocean Park area of Santa Monica.
And you went to go visit to get some current views of the location.
It was weird because that house is still there. It's currently yellow. And it still had those original steps that, you see Richard and Karen walking up, I think, going up the stairs. So that building is there. It's probably like 4 or 5 units in there.
Okay.
But anyway, it's still there for you to enjoy. So if you want to go there, you can check on the slides.
Santa Monica, yeah. So what Richard does is he goes over there thinking, gosh, maybe the only way I'm going to do this is if I can get them to drop the charges, right? So he actually bribes the young lass Pam, who, by the way, let's be honest, now that we see her again in her own territory,
her element,
she's way more like mature and savvy, because before she kind of looked, sort of helpless and young. But here she is like, chowing down on the cornflakes.
She totally reminds me of the character Neely O'Hara, played by Patty Duke in Valley of the Dolls.
Totally.
She's very like, totally. He's offering her like a place to stay in Rincon in the Rincon for 2 weeks, and she can get some scuba gear. You can go over to my friend who's got the scuba place. And
new surfboards. She is
skateboard.
all about this. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
She can trade being in some stuffy courthouse instead of already getting all this stuff. She is all for it. But it's obviously very shady, and they even had this this kind of noir music that's playing during this time. So this is like a dirty D-League, and Richard has his cigarette.
He has his cigarette hanging out of his mouth.
It's ridiculous. So I think Richard leaves and says, think about it or whatever. And then when he returns to kind of seal the deal, unfortunately, there is Mama Messenger there. And she says, they cannot be bought.
Yeah, you can buy us.
She's great. She, of course.
Conchata Ferrell.
Yeah, she had a long stint on 2.5 Men. And then, of course, she was also on what became Knots Landing's big Thursday night competition, LA Law. She's no longer with us.
Yeah, she passed in 2020. Away. I saw that. But she had a good long career.
She did. Again, total scene stealer.
Yeah.
Later that night, we have a highly dramatic.
Oh, that's such a great scene. It's very dark.
Yeah, the mirror camera work is severe up in here.
Karen's wearing like that purple lavender nightgown.
Oh, we threw it under the bus last week.
We did.
In our ranking
but
of fashion.
It doesn't matter. It looks good.
Actually, we didn't throw it under the bus. We threw it under Lily Mae's Ford Landau. Okay,
she ran over it.
She might even have a drink in her hand, and she is stirring like all these thoughts, and she expresses them once again to Sid. She says, "Do you really think Richard is the right guy for this particular job?" And I think he says something like, "Oh, Karen," I'm sorry, that was not fair. That was not fair to Sid. Sid says, "Is it absolutely necessary for you to always have the last word?"
And she says, "Yes." And I thought that was really, and it's true, and she should.
She was right, because
she's right about all this.
In the last scene of the episode, we have the court hearing where the judge decides that there is just cause for this case to go to trial. And Karen is furious, and Richard is just like overconfident that everything's gonna be okay. And you get this long, slow shot of Sid where he is just stone-faced.
Yeah, he looks really freaked out.
And that's how we end the first part
one
of Hitchhike.
Yeah.
Now, as we move into part 2, which we confirm is also written and directed by Don Murray and Edward Perrone, the first, I think, sequence we have is Richard kind of having a strategy meeting with all the Fairgates in the living room where he says, I think you guys better take a plea deal. Because he already knows what he's done and it hasn't worked, right?
Sid being who he is, there's no way he's taking the plea deal.
No way.
He's like, I'm innocent. I haven't done anything. So this is becoming a real huge problem for the family.
Especially Diana, who is like the eldest child, and she's getting a lot of heat from this, and it's kind of disrupting some of the things that she's going on. And she says something like, to her father, she says, you're how dare you pick up this young chick? Like, we're all sick. Remember that whole moment?
We're all sick.
And then he has to go up there and have this one-on-one conversation with her. So Karen can just see how badly this is affecting those in her family and how this is just going on way too long. And so she's like, we really got to shift focus, and we have to work with Stan, not with Richard.
Now, of course, this is all affecting Sid now, too, at work.
Yes.
You see him in the workplace. There's something that's gone wrong with the smog device.
Some customer comes in and like removes the smog device.
Yeah,
so we
and
can
he
pass
is
emissions.
furious. He's like losing his shit.
Yeah,
he really is.
I mean, I think it's partly setting up the storyline for the engine that he's going to be working on, right?
It does set the tone for that because, again, he's also environmentally conscious.
Yes, but it does show how stressed out he is. And then, of course, you also hear in bits and pieces how sales are totally slumping at Knots Landing Motors. Nobody wants to buy a car from them. Then I guess there's also like this energy crisis where the fuel prices are high, so nobody's really buying cars. There's an interesting moment as well where the tables are turned from season 1, episode 12, maybe, when Gary was totally drunk and he had this meeting and Sid said, oh, don't worry, I'll take the meeting for you. Well, now it's Gary.
Gary's going to take the meeting for
I'm going to
Sid.
take this meeting for you because of your bad reputation. And then what Gary says to him in this moment that's very important, although you might have missed it when you're first watching it, he says, because of everything you did for me last year, you know, when I was, you know, drunk and all that stuff, all the opportunities you gave me, I am going to do whatever it takes to get Knots Landing Motors through this slump. Okay.
And we know where that's going.
Karen needs to do something. She needs to do something, right? So she goes over to see Pam and her mother back at the house in Santa Monica.
241 Marine.
There you go. And she is trying to, I guess, play maybe on the mother's sympathy a little bit, like talk to her mother to mother. And she's, I guess, trying to implore, like, to let them know who Sid really is. And so she's trying to talk about how this is all affecting their family and their kids and all this stuff. And then what is
Oh,
Pam
she is
say?
not sympathetic.
Pam says,
the mother's
well,
not.
Pam first says, something like, well, you must not know him as well as I do. And then Karen says, you couldn't.
Yeah.
Oh.
And when that happens, actually, the mother looks,
Yeah.
she's a little taken aback because I think she thinks, oh, maybe my daughter is lying.
That's the first crack.
Right.
That's the
but
first
then she kind of doubled down.
She doubles down. And then I think Pam says something like, oh, you should tell your husband to lay off the chicks.
Yeah. It's a
So
real ugly scene.
It gets
It's
ugly
not-
because then it is revealed. Because, this is what does it. This is what does it. Because there's that moment where you think that maybe Mrs. Messenger is going to be like siding with him. But then she remembers, oh, yeah, well, then why did your husband send his lawyer to bribe us?
Right. And then Karen is just like, what? So that was the big whoops.
Bombshell.
Yeah. So, of course, she kind of decides like she's getting out of there.
Yeah, so she gets out of there, and then there's this van who has like kind of blocked her in. She has to like jostle her parking, and she can see the license plate, and it says
372 yuck.
She says, my sentiments exactly.
She doesn't know at that point that it's a major clue.
Right,
But
right.
it's just funny. Yuck.
So back at home, there's another dramatic scene where Karen's in the darkness again, and she has another drink.
Oh, she's got a cocktail in her hand.
Oh, by the way, can we talk about how cute her outfit was in that particular scene? I was going to include that on our ranking of the best fashions, but there were just so many. But I really did like that. She looked very fresh, very cute little outfit. But there she is in the dark. Sid comes home because he's gone home early from work. There's nothing going on at Knots Landing Motors.
Oh, she's very dramatic. She says, it's over.
It's
and
over.
he's like, what?
She tells him
Yeah, this just to
what
tell
happened.
what happens. And of course, he is PO'd.
Woo.
And he's like, I'm going over to see Richard right now.
Right.
So he goes over to the Averys.
And Richard happens to be coming home right at that moment.
Yeah.
They're in the driveway, and he fires him on the spot. And Karen's right there, and she can watch this all as well. And then even little Jason is there, so he's being fired. Richard's being fired in front of his son, and that's another fashion that we forgot. We didn't catch that.
Oh,
that
yeah.
cute little OP top that little
Little
Jason was
yellow
wearing.
OP, Ocean Pacific.
What would you rank that? What would you quickly? Take my money.
I was going to take my money. For kids' fashion, that's a good one. That's good.
Okay, so now that they have fired Richard and they are fully on board with Stan Lesser, they go over there, strategize with him, and immediately he's got all these ideas, right? So he asks Sid, when you went to the police department and they gave you back your money, how much money did you have? Like, they give you a receipt? Or blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, did you have more than $100? And he said no. He didn't even have $100, which is great because that pokes the hole in the argument where the girl said that he was going to give me $100.
He offered $100 to, like, shut her up after all
this.
this.
So why would you give her $100 if you didn't have $100?
If you didn't have $100, right.
So that's point
so
one.
They're kind of excited that there's maybe some hope that this guy is actually going to, do something, right? And then I guess he suggests that they go back to the scene of the non-crime later to see if they can jog more of Sid's memory. So they do. And where is the scene of the non-crime, Doug?
Well, so this, again, I did see when we slowed it down, there was...
World's biggest best pastrami? I'm hungry. I'm
hungry.
hungry.
I looked for the world's biggest pastrami, but I saw Palms Boulevard, which I often go over there to this place because like one of my favorite coffee places is right there.
We also know that it's across the street from a gas station,
right.
A mobile gas station.
No, Arco.
Oh, Arco. Okay.
And so that was the key because I just looked Palms, Arco. I was able to see across the street there was a sandwich shop, but it was no longer whatever that name of that sandwich shop was. But I went over there and I got all excited because I kept thinking like, wouldn't it be fun to like bring a sandwich back for the show? To have it on the show. But when I went there, it's currently either being remodeled or under new management. Like it's all gutted. But
pretty
it's there.
Amazing that those buildings are still there and you can match it up and you can see the windows and the doors and all that stuff. And I think you had said that it's really only a couple blocks away, really, from Sony.
Oh, it's super
MGM
close to Sony
Studios.
It's like
where they
5 minutes drive from Sony. And I mean, the only thing I could say is it's a very busy intersection. It's Motor and Palms.
There you go.
I was trying to get just photos. It was hard to even get photos.
So anyway, here we are at night, and we have Sid in the driver's seat, and we have Karen and Stan. And Stan is kind of going through all the possible outcomes of the trial. He says the best outcome would be for the judge to just like throw the whole thing out. And then you have Sid there, and he's just kind of like frustrated. And then they get out, and they ask about the van. And this becomes this big thing because I guess in some of her accounts, Pam has mentioned the van, and then in others, she hasn't.
Yeah.
To Stan, that's like a clue that, oh, maybe she knows the dudes in the van, and this is all a setup.
Yes. So that kind of sends them onto another direction of investigation.
Right. And they also ask him what he remembers of the van. Like, what did it look like?
He says, I remember everything, but I can't remember the license plate.
There's another scene in the bedroom where Karen wakes up and she's like, I got it. I remember. I saw the van. And she recalls that whole thing. What was the license plate number again?
Right. 372 Yuck.
Okay, so they can put two and two together that the van was at the messenger's house. They must know each other. And then Stan enters in the license plate.
Yeah, they go to the police station or something.
Some lame-ass old computer from, 1960 and the dot
Looks like a Commodore.
Yeah, the dot matrix printer prints up the thing. They are able to cross-reference. They find the results, and they see that one of the people that has a license plate that could have said that, his name is Rodney, I think.
Rodney.
And he was arrested for petty theft a year prior with Pam.
So there you go.
Now, there's a little moment here, which we didn't discuss in the Abby podcast way at the beginning of our season 2 coverage, where she kind of goes into undercover mode. She goes out there, she takes the Polaroid, they go to visit the house. That's right,
and she goes to she's at the police station, and she's working her magic. One of the first indications that, like, oh, this is what we're dealing with. Besides, like, the Richard thing.
And Karen sees that, too,
yeah.
I think. And she's even kind of impressed, I think, in that moment with Abby's moxie. But it doesn't last long, to be honest. But anyway, so she's kind of talking to the officer, right? The original arresting officer, and saying, did she mention the van? Like, let's talk about this whole van thing. So they're setting this precedent that this is a big deal, right? So in the final sequence of this 2-part episode, there is like some closed meeting at the courthouse.
I think it's a meeting with the lawyers.
Yeah. The lawyer for Pam is saying, hey, y'all, I have some new evidence that's not gonna go well for your case. But Pam's like, oh no, I'm not backing down. He did this, whatever. And the guy's like, well, you sure? Because then this guy walks in, and it's Rodney. It's a van dude. I guess in order to avoid prosecution for himself, he's coming clean. He spills the tea on their little scam. He says they've been doing this before.
Yeah, they look for an expensive car, and then they make a little commotion, and this is what they do. Yeah, and they make extra money.
Hello. So you can see in the moment that the mother is like, oh gosh, is this really true? But she won't back down or something. Or she says, they're lying. They paid you to say that or something like that. And then the lawyer says, no, actually, I checked this out on my own. They did not pay me. And I know we're not going to win this case. And so at that point, poor little Pam cannot deny that this has all gone on. So, of course, the case is thrown out. And Mrs. Messenger is definitely crestfallen at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, there's that great scene when they walk out of the courtroom and they're in like the hallway of the
courthouse,
Almonte Courthouse. I think
that is correct.
Out.
Yes.
So
Teletalk. Shout out to Teletalk. We found that corroborated. Yeah. Same courthouse where Emma Channing was, or who I can't remember who was. I think it was Emma Channing.
Emma.
Was, in season 1 of Falcon Crest. You know, the Turner Bates or whatever. I don't remember all that stuff.
Turner Bates.
Okay.
Oh no. Anyway, that's a whole nother podcast.
Let's not go there. Okay, so anyway, yeah, there's this moment where they look at each other, and I think there's an element where it's like this class war as well.
Yeah, but God, I'm gonna say Karen's looking so good right
Fab.
there. Her hair looks just like, again, film noir again.
Yeah,
the ending,
it's
very
kind of like that Gibson girl from season 1. This is maybe the last time we see it, kind of segueing into season 2. The dress is really cute, and the music is so
the music's very dramatic,
over the top noir.
Yeah, like I said, and then there's something that is said too. Richard is seen when they go home, and he makes a reference to.
Oh no, I think it was earlier. He says something like I think it was when he's fired. He says, "Hey, this is real life. This ain't a Perry Mason episode."
But that's what it's like. It's totally like a Perry Mason. The whole thing, like the wrap up at the end, where they're at the courthouse or whatever. It's like
it's cute.
Yeah,
it's cute. I'm sure that Don and John, the two actors who are writing for the show in these first 2 seasons, I'm sure they were talking to each other about all this stuff.
I'm sure. Yeah.
We'll talk more about John Plachette a little bit later.
Yeah, a little later.
Okay. So that's it for Hitchhike. Unfortunately,
Part 1 and 2.
Even though he is cleared, this has ramifications moving forward for the rest of the season. Let's get into it as we carry into episode 3. This is Remember the Good Times. We featured this episode in our Gary and Val podcast for season 2. So there's really only one scene that has anything to do with Sid, and it is at Knott's Landing Motors, where Gary suggests to Sid that maybe they buy like a bunch of parts or something at a discounted price. Maybe they could offer special discounts to get more business back to Knott's Landing Motors. And then Sid says something like, well, we don't have the manpower for that. And Gary says, well, why don't we hire another mechanic? It's going to come into play very, very soon. Now, the only reason I bring this up, this particular scene, is because this is when Earl comes in drunk and he disrupts everything. But there's this great moment where there's a character in the background we hear maybe for the first time ever. It's Marcia.
Oh, Marcia, who works at Knott's Landing Motors.
Yes.
Yeah.
She is featured a lot in season 3, but we're just starting to see a taste of her in these episodes in season 2. She's a real broad. Yeah, I like her. I like her a lot.
So we're into Chance of a Lifetime.
And we said we were going to talk about John Plachette, and here we go. Because this is his first written episode of the season. Now, I don't know if you all watched. We're not done yet, right? The podcast with the ladies of Knott's Landing. We recently caught the episode that featured an interview with John and his wife, Lynn. Wasn't that fascinating?
That was really interesting
to hear about how the early days of Knott's Landing, how it came to be. But I think my favorite part really was him talking about his writing on the show and how it influenced what happens. And we really see that right here in the very first scene of episode 4, Chance of a Lifetime. You could ask yourself, what is the chance of a lifetime? Well, I always assumed it was Richard's chance of a lifetime in this episode where he gets offered that deal to move to Chicago. But you could also read it as the chance of a lifetime in a way for Sid and this engine, because this is where this storyline comes into play. It starts off really in the very first scene, which is Karen and Val, and they're talking in the kitchen about her going back to college. And then Gary walks in and he says, oh, hey, where's Sid? We have a meeting with the Orchid Cab Company at 10 a.m. What Karen says, oh, he's not home. He went downtown to the courthouse to talk to a patent lawyer about his engine.
What he's trying to develop is this fuel-efficient engine.
It's better gas mileage, like really good gas mileage.
And
like unheard of gas mileage.
and not such bad emissions.
Right.
The ultimate goal is to get a car that would get like 100 miles to the gallon.
Yeah,
that's the idea.
Wild.
Anyway.
Okay, so the other important part, I think, about this particular scene is that there's this heavy attention placed on the fact that Val is reading Moby Dick for her writing class at college, and everybody says it. Gary says it. Val says it. Karen says it. Why are they saying Moby Dick? Well, I have an idea, and we'll talk about it at the end of the podcast. Okay. Stay tuned. Okay, so later at Knott's Landing Motors, we have Sid returning back and Gary asking him how things went. And I guess Sid says, oh, the lawyer says I'm on the right track or something like that. And then this person introduces herself, right? Good morning.
Linda Stryker.
It's Linda Stryker.
And she's isn't she like an intern or something from MIT?
Sid's concerned, like, who is this? And Gary says, oh, it's the new mechanic, the new repair person, because this is kind of a joke, because he's like, she's a female grease monkey.
And I think they said, shouldn't she be called a grease person?
Grease person. But I guess, Sid's concerned about the hemorrhaging budget at Knots Landing Motors, and that's when Gary says, oh, well, she's just an intern. And listen, like the repair work is the only thing that is actually keeping Knots Landing Motors afloat right now, right? So now this character is played by Demise Gallic. Did you find anything else?
Well, I found a little bit about her. I mean, there is a bunch of stuff about her. Like, she's done a lot of character acting. She was in General Hospital for a while.
Okay.
I think she was that was one of her biggies. I think she did it for a very long time.
Another GH alum, just like our good friend Jane Elliott.
She was in the Happy Hooker movie.
Oh,
from 1975, which the story of Xaviera Hollander, which we love. She was in V, The Final Battle.
Oh, I can see her in V. In V.
She was in the Andromeda Strain.
Okay.
But are you ready for this, though? She was originally cast as Chrissy Snow in the second of the 3 pilots for Three's Company in 1976.
Wow.
She rehearsed for 3 days, and then she was dropped, and she was replaced with this actress, Susan Lanier.
Wow.
So I just thought that was weird. So she did not do it.
Wow.
But isn't that kind of weird? Because, of course, being a fan of Three's Company, you and I, for years.
Yeah, that
kind of weird,
funny.
right?
I have to say,
I can't imagine
Linda,
her
the character of Linda, she's a dork. She is a dork.
She's dorky.
I'm sorry. She's a nerd. I think Gary even says in this scene that she's there to learn how the engine works from the inside out. And as we will soon learn, she also has that same interest in learning about Sid.
Yes, it's true. Inside out, baby.
Later in the day, Karen arrives. She's wearing that magenta sweater and the flower in her hair that Lily May ran down in our last episode.
I actually thought it looked kind of cute, though.
It's cute, but it's weird for her. I don't know.
She looks like she should be going out to a tiki bar.
Yeah, for sure. If they were going to lunch at a tiki bar.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, forgiven.
Okay.
Anyway, what happens is she interrupts this kind of tense moment where I guess Linda was changing a tire and she was cutting a corner. Yes. And then the car, falls to the ground and it breaks the axle. And so
Sid gets pissed.
He's pissed off. And that's when Karen kind of cuts the tension there. And she says something like, oh, I'm very proud of you for hiring a female auto mechanic at Knots Landing. Sid says, yeah, she graduated summa cum laude in auto wrecking. Which, here's the thing. We know in soap opera land, anytime you have 2 people of the opposite sex who just meet and they are having friction, they are setting up a romantic interest involvement somewhere down the line. We can see right through this.
So after lunch, we have Gary and Sid meeting with the Orchid Cab Company. We meet Frank and Roy, who are like these. Well, Frank is a real gangster style.
It's like comic book gangster.
Yeah,
it's really...
Roy's a little less gangstery.
Yeah.
In fact, he's got some dreamboat blue eyes.
I liked this actor.
I think you said you thought he looked like Yul Brynner.
Oh, for sure.
A little bit at some point.
John Philip Law.
Yeah, I thought he looked a little like John Philip Law, played Pygar in Barbarella. And,
anyway, he's good, and the other one is maybe a little dumber, right? He's the brawn to the other guy's brains, but we don't really know what their story is quite yet.
Well, they say that they want to buy 15 cabs, which, of course, Gary's getting all excited because it's 15 cars. You're going to buy 15 cars from us. We're going to finally make some money.
Yeah.
So he's trying to string together this deal, but then they're pretty much
they're
negotiating already.
Right on the spot about getting a service and parts repairs for 3 years and all this kind of stuff. And they want to get I don't know what the percentage.
I was just going to say one thing too. When people start negotiating right out of the gate, then it is a red flag.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
It
kind of deflates Gary's excitement over this because Sid is like, we need to talk about this for a little bit. So they do. They talk about it a little bit later on, and it's given enough time for Sid to check into their company. And when he checked with a Better Business Bureau, there was no Orchid Cab Company in Albuquerque, I guess, which is where they said that they were based. So Sid puts the brakes on things.
Literally.
Maybe we shouldn't do this, right? But Gary's super excited about this because he sees this as, again, that cash cow. Gary says to Sid, what's so strange about, 2 guys wanting to set up a taxi cab company in Los Angeles? And Sid says, the guys.
Yeah.
The following day, Frank and Roy meet up with Gary on the side of the road in the car. It's very weird because is that Frank and Gary are in the back seat and Roy is like turning around in the front seat. It's like
it's kind of weird. It's gangster style stuff.
Yeah. So I think Gary says, hey, listen, I don't think Sid's going to go for this. He says, he checked with the Better Business Bureau and there is no Orchid Cab Company.
Oh, and they came up with this excuse that they said that the names that they choose are like for each state.
Franchise,
they pick the state flower of the state. So I guess the orchid, is that the state flower, California? I don't know.
Who knows?
But that's the excuse.
Yeah, it was really interesting then because Frank says to Gary, if you guys check on that, I suggest that you check on it. Which is intimating that maybe that's not even true at all. But if you want this business to happen, why don't you just lie?
Right. And I think that Gary is so eager and kind of naive in a way to do something good that he doesn't really care. He's just going to do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? He just wants to do this.
Yeah, and he probably doesn't really see that there's going to be a problem once this is done, right? He says, I do want to know about your books or whatever. And then Frank says, we've got nothing to hide. And it's very like gaslighty. This whole thing is very heavy-handed. So later on, when there's another scene at Not Sliding Motors, Linda goes up to Sid and says something like, hey, so I heard that we got to prepare 15 cars for this fleet deal.
Oh, yeah. And he's like, what? What are you talking about? I didn't hear about this.
So he runs over to Gary. What's going on? I thought we were going to talk about this. And he says, don't worry, Sid. I talked to my relative who lives in Albuquerque. They already checked with the people. They're very reputable. They're good. Don't worry about it. He says, just trust me, Sid. Mm-mm. Which reminded me of what Diane Letoulier had said when we talked to her about Gary's alcoholism, that's what alcoholics will always say. Just trust
me. Yeah. So that's interesting. Later in the evening, we have Sid back at Not Sliding Motors with Linda. And so
burning the midnight oil.
So we now
already
see that
freezing that ice, right? That was between them earlier.
Yeah, they had the ice is now thawing. I guess there's a suggestion about using some kind of different alloy by Linda to Sid for the engine that will help make this more sustainable and fuel efficient. And so
she says, why don't we get a computer, because that way we can, quickly run through all these different alloy compositions. I don't know anything about this stuff. I am definitely not.
I don't know anything about it. But, I think he's very happy now with the Linda Stryker joining the team.
Okay, well, this is something that I'm really excited about, and she's really excited about it. Maybe he just doesn't read into why she's so excited about it. And that will come back a little bit later on. Okay, we're going to actually skip ahead quite a few episodes now because there's nothing really Sid-based in those episodes necessarily. So we're going to jump all the way to Scapegoats, and this is number 8.
And you know what's great, though, about this one? Abby starts working at Knott's Landing Motors.
Is it great? I don't know that it's so great.
Well, I mean, it's fun. Let's put it that way.
From a dramatic storyline perspective, because this is where things really get cooking.
Things get heating up.
This is where Abby's coming to bring a woman's touch to the bookkeeping at Knott's Landing.
Plus, Gary needs somebody to kind of have a...
Right. Gary needs a work wife. All right, so there's this moment where Sid says to Gary, geez, listen, the repair and parts deal that was built into this Orchid Cab Company thing is killing us because I guess the prices for parts have been increasing. And so Gary says, okay, don't worry, I'll go and talk to Roy and Frank again to renegotiate. And Sid's like, well, okay, but, I don't think it's going to do anything.
Yeah.
So we have that lunch scene with the three of them, and they have a solution for Gary's problem.
Yes.
They say, we would like to offer you this inventory of parts that you can buy from us at a discounted price. They're like heavily discounted.
Yeah.
They're like a third of the wholesale price.
Is it $50,000?
The price is $50,000.
Yeah.
And Gary's like, why are you offering this? And I guess they say something like, well, you did a favor for us, right? Because he kind of overlooked maybe some unsavory details about their business to do that. And so now he's repaying them back, right? But Gary's like, what am I going to do? And he says, well, I'll talk it over with Sid. He's like, but I don't think it's going to be a problem. And the guy said, yeah, I don't imagine it would be a problem. And again, it's this kind of like heavy-handed thing, like, this is happening. Okay. Yeah, there will be no discussion.
It's definitely gangster stuff.
Right. And they like toast to it. And Gary's like, okay. It might be another day, I guess, right? because they're driving from the cul-de-sac now. This is Abby in the back seat with Sid and Gary in the front seat. They're all driving from Seaview Circle to Knots Landing Motors.
Yeah.
And I guess Knots Landing Motors is only like a minute away because the conversation flows directly. So they go from Granada Hills to Crenshaw in 1 minute.
Yeah, which is, if there was no traffic, I'd say that'd be a good at least 45 minutes.
Exactly.
At least.
So Sid is wary of this new offer of these parts at this crazy low price. He's like, okay, these guys have to be crooks. There's no way, right? And so he says, absolutely not. I don't want to do business with these guys anymore. And he storms out of the car. And then Gary says something like, when is Sid going to learn that we're running a business, not a Sunday school? And you see Abby in the back seat like...
Yes, she starts thinking,
Because Abby ain't going to Sunday school. She's no interest in Sunday school.
No, she's not a Sunday school teacher.
All right, so then later on, Frank and Roy arrive at Knots Landing Motors to see what's going on. What was Sid's answer? And Gary says he's not interested. He doesn't want to do it. And they say, well, we already ordered the parts. That was a verbal agreement. We're doing this.
Yeah, now, isn't there that moment too somehow Abby has pressed the button on the intercom while they're having the meeting, so she's in the other room, so she can hear everything going on. I have to say,
it's really well done how they kind of paced it. So this is great because it sets up this whole thing with the JR involvement as well, because suddenly Gary has to purchase these parts, even though Sid said no, and he has to come up with the money. And that is when Abby can become his savior.
Right.
Offer him a solution to pay this off. Because I think even in that same episode, Roy and Frank come back again and they say something like, owing money can be very dangerous. And they have that big old wrench.
Yeah, big old wrench falls or is thrown, right?
Yeah, Frank drops it
on his
Gary's
foot.
boot.
Now, I was wondering, were those steel cowboy boots?
I don't know. I guess not. But I guess in that moment, they say, okay, the $50,000 is due cash on delivery like the following week. So the clock is ticking.
Right. So he's going to have to figure out one way or another how to get that money. Right. And I mean, let's face it, $50K back then is a lot more. Even now, $50K is a lot of money.
I don't have $50K.
Where's he going to get that money? Hey, JR, hello.
That's what Abby suggests.
It's good to have a rich brother.
Yeah, the next episode, which is a family matter, JR comes down for some oil convention. And so Abby says, okay, he can be the savior to this problem. But of course, Gary doesn't want to do any business with him. It doesn't matter. Abby is determined. She invites him over to Knots Landing Motors. And one thing leads to another. And there he is standing over Sid's engine that is possibly going to squash his business. So JR's very, very interested in this concept. He doesn't care where the money comes from, for him. He can be selling oil or he could be selling the engine.
Right. He's just into making money.
He's an opportunist, right? So that's when Abby invites everybody over for dinner and they have that little moment there. And I think he's starting to ask Sid about the engine. And Sid's like, again, aw shucks, totally naive.
Yeah.
He's letting all the details just fall right out of his mouth. And Karen's like, maybe you, might want to put a little brake pedal there on that information.
JR kind of let something slip too about
the parts deal.
The parts deal.
That's going to make Sid a lot of money.
Right. And then he says, oh, no, I think I was mistaking my brother Bobby.
Yeah.
So it's like,
he weasels out of it.
Yeah, he realizes like,
but I think Karen does see that.
Yeah, I think
that's
Karen...
what causes her suspicion to start growing
right. That's
Abby
why she starts sniffing around.
Going on.
Totally.
So anyway, I think there's a scene later on in that episode again where Frank and Roy come back again, and there's that little tussle in the garage, and that is when Gary realizes that he has no other choice but to ask his brother for the money, and JR gives him $100,000 in cash. He times it by 2.
And why did he do that?
Well, because he wants to keep the lines of communication open about that engine and maybe get a patent on that engine so that he can control whatever that, and he calls it again, the chance of a lifetime in that scene.
That's
right?
Referencing the last episode.
So this is not good. This is not good because all this time, Sid is in the dark about all of this stuff.
And everybody's conspiring against him.
It's not good. It's not good mid-season, okay?
Nope. We're back with episode 10.
Yes. So we have this first scene at Knots Landing Motors where they're working on the engine. I guess maybe they're making some progress. And so Linda suggests to Sid that they make such a great team together. And she's definitely like dolling herself up more with, doing her hair better and makeup or whatever. And then Sid says some lame joke and she laughs, and that laugh is...
It's kind of a screech. She's got a screecher.
She's a dweeb, okay?
She's a dweeb.
She's in over her head here, okay? Now, later on in the episode, she's kind of playing into Sid's love of auto racing, right? She says...
she has a poster for this Monterey race car driving thing, right?
It's a Trans Am races,
and
right?
she's got tickets.
She says she had bought 2 tickets, and her friend suddenly can't go, so now she has this extra ticket. Sure, Jan.
So she wanted to see if maybe he'd want to go with her to the race car thing.
Right.
Of course, her motives are underhand, whereas I think, Sid is just, he still doesn't clock on at all. He has no clue.
Right. He's like, okay, well, I just have to check it with Karen, and if Karen says that I can go, then I'll go.
I found this kind of funny episode, too, because they're playing with this idea that, like, Linda is misinterpreting everything because she's so young, right?
Because she asked him, she goes, I'm really surprised. Do you and your wife, like, talk about this stuff all the time or something like
she
that?
thinks
like,
they
why
must
do you
have,
think
like...
that would be okay?
Right. You have an open marriage. She's assuming they have, like, an open marriage, and...
Sid doesn't see it at all.
Sid is just
He's
oblivious.
like, well, it's not like we're going to Hawaii or something.
Yeah, he's like, I just got to check with my wife.
And actually, what happens is in the next scene, when they're at home in the kitchen, he's already asked Karen and the kids to go with him. So he was never thinking of just going along with her.
Right.
He was like, oh, we have the 1 ticket and we can buy some more. They're talking about this potential trip to Monterey, and Karen says, oh, I can't go because of Michael, right? Michael has that hyperactivity situation going on. She wants to stay close to home. So she suggests to Sid that he take Eric instead so that he can be the chaperone for Sid and what she calls that siren in overalls.
Yeah, a siren in overalls. I don't know if I'd call her a siren in overalls.
Yeah, and I don't think Sid would either, because he says something like, half the time I forget she's even a woman.
Yeah.
And Karen
Remember,
says, I don't.
She's a grease monkey.
I never forget.
Yeah,
Grease person.
Grease person.
So Karen sort of like pushes him to go, which is so weird. And of course, that's going to bite her in the ass later in the season. But when this is brought up again later on, I think Sid has decided he's not going to go.
Right. Michael's acting up too much and having too many issues. So it's like he's not going to do that.
Right. But he does say to Linda, can we take a rain check?
Right.
And so that gives her some hope. And that opens up that conversation again for her. Like, wow, you guys have like a real modern relationship. And Sid just does not see it. He's like, no, if I have to make plans on the weekend, I'm going to ask her. Her time is just as important as mine.
I am not a Pollyanna.
Yeah, totally. So it's really, really interesting because I think she leaves thinking, well, I'm going to pick up on this a little bit later on.
Yeah. Let's leave it a week or two.
Zooming right along into the next episode, State of Mind, we have really just one scene that we want to talk about here because it is Karen and Sid in the kitchen, and they're talking about Abby now, because this is all setting up this fact that Sid is like, got his blinders on through all of this stuff. And so, of course, we know that she's having this issue right now with her ex-husband, Jeff, and this whole like custody battle that's going on in this episode, I believe. But the reason why it's become a problem is because since coming to town, Abby has just been like wrecking havoc throughout the cul-de-sac, right? She's sleeping with Richard, which is causing friction with her children, and she's pawning the children off on Val, and she's borrowing things and not returning them. And so Sid is just nonstop loyal to his sister.
Right. He doesn't even clock on that she's bad at all. Again, Saint Sid thinks that she's a saint.
Right. And so Karen's like, well, where is your loyalty to the rest of your family and your friends? And she even says something like, I don't know what's going on here, but I feel like since Abby started working for you at Knots Landing Motors, there is something going on between she and Gary. She can't put her finger on it, but she's 100% certain of it. Yeah. And so I think this is interesting because this is a necessary scene to show why Sid's kind of getting the wool pulled over his eyes. And I have to wonder, like, is this kind of saintliness, this naivete of Sid, do we need to sacrifice that in the show so that the badness of Abby can come into play? Well, we're going to talk about it a little bit later on, right? About Don Murray leaving the show. We talked about it with Claudia Lano in our interview. We've been kind of talking about this. We know where this is heading. And I think this is one of those moments where we have to explain why all this is going on. Because he's not dumb. I mean, Sid's not dumb. He's just burying his head in the sand.
Yeah.
Okay, now we are going into the third of our 4 featured episodes for this particular podcast centering around Sid. Sleeping now, getting ready for bed. This is Players, and this was written by Misty Stewart Taggart, and the director is Jeff Bleckner, who I recognize that name. I know he's done some other episodes. This, of course, is the episode that focuses on Sid and his greaseperson sidekick, Linda, and this sort of will they or won't they moment. Starts off at Not Sliding Motors. Once again, they're hovering over an engine, under the hood.
They just seem to always be hovering over
I got grease all over them all the time.
Yeah.
And they're excited, though, because the engine appears to be like it's 6 months ahead of schedule. So this is great. They discover, I think, as Karen arrives, that magnesium is the special alloy that is going to make Sid very, very famous. And Karen's just like, huh? What?
And I think, doesn't Sid say something like, because Linda says something complimentary about you're going to be rich. And he's like, well, you were integral to this idea. So it's almost like maybe he's going to go into business with her.
Well, and you see Abby's also there and she's eyeing this from afar. And she's like, okay, Karen, I think there's a problem here, right?
Yeah.
So she's goading her about her sex life, or maybe lack of sex life.
Lack of sex life, because she's spending too much time with the engine.
Right, because Linda says, cars take up most of my time. And Abby says, well, with the price of fuel these days, maybe you better come up with a different hobby.
Yeah. She comes with the good lines always, as we know.
So Karen invites this young lass over to the Fairgate house because I guess Abby and Sid's nephew, I guess from another Fairgate sibling that we don't know about, he's coming to visit. So there's like this matchmaking.
Yeah,
potential.
Karen's thinking she's going to matchmake.
Yeah, this will solve the problem.
That'll solve the problem. And then, of course, doesn't Abby say to Karen, like as a sidebar, she is clearly into Sid.
Yeah, she says, take my word for it, you've got a problem here. Mm-hmm. And Karen says, I wouldn't take your word for anything.
But listen, Abby should know she's the queen bee.
She knows exactly how this seduction works. And we soon will find out as well, because when Linda arrives for the dinner, she's got her girls out, if you know what I mean.
We noticed, not to be graphic, but we don't think she was wearing a bra. So she's like...
It's like the Jean-Paul Gaultier bra look from the 90s without the bra. Again, Karen's like giving her the benefit of the doubt, but Abby's like, no, this girl is making a play for your husband right under your nose, because even though she's been introduced to the nephew, she's spending all of her time talking to Sid. So then Karen's like, oh, okay. So then during dinner, I guess this dork of a nephew invites her to some jazz thing, and she's absolutely not, and she can't show that she has any interest because she does not want to send the wrong signals to Sid. So she says, oh, no, I have to get up early and go to work. And he's like, well, no, you can go.
She's like, oh, but I've got my car here.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I can bring you back
it's
here.
Very
it's
uncomfortable.
Not
but she's just like, no, I'm going to go. So she goes. Yeah. And that's when I think Karen can really see, okay, yeah, there is something going on here, right?
Yeah. Next day. Where are we again?
Not Sliding Motors.
Not Sliding Motors.
I mean, if the tire and the wrench and the license plates didn't...
Not Sliding Motors.
This is where we are. Okay, so I think Karen has come over... Or no, did she call maybe? She wants to make a lunch date with Sid, but he says, oh, I'm too busy.
Yeah, he's like, I'm slammed today. But
yeah, then after that, he talks to Linda, who says, oh, can you go with me to go pick up some part for the engine? And he's like, well, what about all the work I have to do? And she says, I did it. When we flash to later, they're at Pacific Park. You can see the two of them are like sharing a laugh, but it's very clear that she is half this dude's age. Like, it just is not a match, but she doesn't really.
And they're playing that stupid race car game, the racing cars that, like, when you shoot it's almost like the balloon game with the
clowns, where you blow it up. Yeah.
Of course, Sid and Karen were going to go to their favorite place for dinner. That was kind of the plan, right, for later. Right. However,
Sid is late home. I guess he didn't call or whatever. So even though she's all dressed up, she's sitting there now preparing dinner at home. And it's really comedic because she takes this like can of, I don't know what it is.
It's probably like canned beef.
Yeah. That's what it looks like.
Something really gross.
And you notice she is not using the no-stick pans that Sid had purchased for her back in season 1. But it's this like comedic moment where there's obviously an argument going on here, but she's making a big show of it, And finally, Karen says to Sid, it's very clear that Linda is in love with you.
And it's funny, he has this kind of smirk on his face. Yeah. And there's an element of it that he's enjoying this attention. He is.
I think we see this play out kind of similar to the episode in season 1 with his ex-wife where, again, he's going to say no, but when it's right in front of his face, it's hard for him to say no. I mean, the rest of the people on the cul-de-sac do not say no.
Right.
But Sid still kind of does, but he still has that desire is still alive.
He ain't dead yet.
But anyway, so when he says that he's not even going to dignify Karen's suspicions with anything, she says to him, well, then good. Go back to your car.
Yeah, go back to your car.
So he does.
Yeah. So he's like, all right, so back to Knots Landing Motors again.
And he finds Linda there again, burning the midnight oil again.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is like out of spite for Karen or whatever it is, but he's like, you know what? This has gone on long enough. Let's just go take this old jalopy out for a spin and test this engine. So Linda is super stoked. And I do feel, though, that this is kind of a moment for him. Like he's into this. He wants to see where this goes.
Yeah.
You know
He's
I mean?
testing the market. I mean, it's late night and they're going to go to the desert together.
Right. So these sequences are all intercut with Karen now sort of like second guessing everything, right? She basically pushed Sid to go back to Knots Landing Motors and potentially Linda. So she goes over to Val's house to commiserate with her and ask for her opinion. And this is that moment where Val then reveals to Karen that Gary has recently cheated on her with Judy.
Right.
And so there's that really tender moment where Karen says, oh, let's go get a pizza. So we're going to cut back and forth between these two scenes. But back out on the long stretch of desert road where they're testing this car, that first run's really good, right? And they get like 80 miles to the gallon, which is like unheard of, very close to their
the goal is 100.
And then I guess it's Linda who says, well, let's push it to 90, right? She gets in the driver's seat. She gets on that desert road, and then it overheats or whatever.
Yeah, something happens. It overheats, and it like conks out, and then they're like stuck.
Yeah.
And then Sid makes this remark about, oh, we both knew we'd blow a rod, which was like, oh, okay.
All right, so now we switch back over to Karen and Val post-pizza. Karen's still eating the pizza. She is just pissed off. She says, guys, you know, I do trust Sid. It's Linda that I don't trust. Because, you know, these young girls, they will do anything. What did you think about that?
I think they made her get too suspicious too quickly. They should have made that a little bit of a slower burn.
Well, they stretched it out
a little
bit.
I think she got way fired up too quickly.
Yeah.
For my, I would have let it go.
Well, in essence, you're right because we'll get to it by the end of the episode. But you're right. Now let's go back to the desert. Right, we have Linda and Sid. They're very close.
Oh yeah,
in the car,
starting to get cold out.
And
they're on a road that nobody travels.
Right.
You know.
And so Linda takes this opportunity to ask Sid, you know, so does your wife ever get upset that you and I are working so late into the night? And Sid has no choice but to say, well, actually, earlier today we were talking about that. And you know, my wife thinks that you're in love with me.
And then Linda makes the big reveal. She says, I am in love with you. So
dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So here we go.
It's actually that scene where Sid allows her to lean in and fully kiss this gentleman, okay?
Yeah.
And again, like I say, this is not the first time we've seen this. This happened in season 1 with his ex-wife in the kitchen where he allowed her to kiss him.
Right.
fully.
It's one of the other few times that Saint Sid is not so saintly.
Right. We don't really know what happened after that kiss. We see them coming out of the car after the commercial break, and they're very cuddly, right? But you do see automatically she's kind of apologizing to him, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So we keep switching back and forth, and I'm telling you, these scenes out in the desert, they kind of remind me of the campfire scenes in My Own Private Idaho, which, you know, a lot of people are like, why? Well, because the setting is very similar and the tone is very similar because you have the one person who's clearly in love with the other person and wanting to sleep with the person, and the other person's like, well, but still kind of flattered. So when she actually asks him flat out, she says, hey, you know, let's do this. Let's make love tonight out here. He says, listen, I can't do that. I just can't do that. She says, nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to know.
Yeah. Doesn't she say like she'd even go away? I'll leave in a week and nobody will know. Like, are you that desperate?
So
okay,
there's this moment where there's this truck coming and the headlights beam down on them. And she says, don't flag him down.
Don't
let him pass. Well, we flip over back to the Fairgate's house again, and here we have that moment where Karen is unloading to Val. It's this really long soliloquy about how difficult it is for her to be married to such a saint, and she never quite knows how to take his, react to what he does. And I think the audience can, in a way, understand what she's saying. Do you know what I
my
mean?
Valine.
Oh, you're doing the Val. You're asleep. Well, so is half our audience at this point. They're all sleeping. So yeah, because she's going on about all this stuff about how she wishes that she could have more interest in engines, and
she's just not an engine queen.
Yeah, and she doesn't understand. She's not a saint herself, or whatever. And there is Val falling asleep. But listen, it is 2:00 in the morning, right? So there's no reason why she's had a long day too, Val. And so there's this cute moment. And we finally get to the final scene of the episode, which is back upstairs. It's even later in the night. She's looking out the window. She sees Sid coming home. And then she quickly has to make it appear as though
she's asleep.
She's asleep.
Like she didn't care.
Right. She can't give him the satisfaction, right? He comes in and she pretends she's waking up. She goes, "What time is it?" And then he's like, "I don't know." And she goes, "It's 4:00 in the morning."
Yeah, it's
so
4:15.
She knew.
It's 4:15.
Yeah. It's this comedic moment again because she's like, "What happened? What happened?" He tells her exactly what happened. And then he's got to go take a shower. Why do you have to go take a shower? Because he's covered in grime and grease and dirt from being out in the desert. And so she's like, oh my gosh. Then she says something like, "Well, Sid, if something had happened, would you have told me?" And he says,
"No.
You know I don't like to brag."
Yeah, I thought that was a really clever line.
Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of like what you were saying. She was getting all worked up about nothing. I mean, come on. Is Linda any competition for her?
No.
Even being 20 years younger or whatever she is? No. Come on, Karen. You're amazing. She's a dweeb. There was nothing to worry about.
I guess there's always that thing where maybe he just wanted a little side piece for the night.
You kind of don't really know, but you know.
Yeah, we know. He wouldn't do that.
Now, what's funny about this whole storyline is I think it was recycled many, 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 many years later in season 10. Do you remember when Mac was like taking some time out in the wilderness and he met Paula?
Oh, I totally remember. I loved Paula. I
love Paula.
Yeah, I was totally into her.
So they had that whole moment where
She's
they were out some night and like they were caught in the rain and then they were like a skunk sprayed them and they ended up spending the night in the motel like without their shirt on because they had to launder.
Right, I remember that.
It's very much this like same kind of vibe with Linda and Sid out there in the desert.
Yeah, and then we didn't know whether he did it or he didn't do it.
Right.
But of course we did.
And it's with Karen. Funny.
Right.
All right, now we're going to skip forward several episodes again. This is going to go now to the 2-part finale, right? We're skipping over all that stuff with Sid and Karen and the kids. And for that, you can go to our podcast right here called Karen and the Kids Put On Fretful Faces. Okay, so now heading into designs, we're picking up with this drama at Knott's Landing Motors. We have JR coming to town again to kind of pick up where he last left off.
And it's probably Sweep Week too when that came out.
It's probably Sweep Week. You're probably right. So he is once again asking about that engine, and he would like to patent Sid's engine for him. They all decide to meet up later for dinner to discuss this matter. Actually, Gary does not agree to come. Or Jerry invites him and then disinvites him, really, because he doesn't want Valine there, let's be honest. So we cut to the dinner, and this is great. This is at that Japanese restaurant.
Oh, and you know what that is, too? I know it's a DoubleTree Hotel in downtown L.A., and it's the Rendezvous Lounge.
Yes.
I'm wondering if they might have combined this.
I think so.
Because I did find the Rendezvous. I saw the sign later
in the
when they're at
the hotel.
Yeah, the hotel. And I think that's probably what it was. Like they did them both at the same time.
I'm going to tell you, I actually watched an interview with David Jacobs where he talked about producing a show like this, where you have 7 days to film this particular episode and you only have so much money. And so sometimes you write a script and you write a scene, and maybe the scene takes place, he used an example where maybe it takes place at a bank. But then when you get into the actual production of the show and you're arranging where all these scenes are going to be shot, you might see that, like, let's say you have to do a park scene and a bank scene in one day, and you scout around, you find the park, but there is no bank there, but there is a laundromat there. Well, wow, maybe if we just switch the setting of that scene that takes place in the bank to take place in a laundromat, then we can cut out all of that travel time, all of that expense of moving everything around, and we can just move from the park right here to the laundromat. And if there was some sort of joke that had something to do with the bank, you just rewrite the joke to have something to do with the laundromat. And that way you maximize your time and you are able to film more and produce a better show. I just love this setting because it really sets up a comedic moment for Don Murray as Sid, because he's like the only one of the four of them at this sit-down Japanese dinner who can't really work the chopsticks, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, the whole point of this scene is we have JR really putting the pressure on Sid to patent his engine for him. And he says, hey, listen, we can make a ton of money. This is great. And when JR mentions the amount of money that could be made, Abby's eyes just completely dance and light up. She is so into this. It's important to keep that in mind because what she does next. Because Sid basically says the engine is not ready and I want to make sure that it is clean as possible because of emissions and all that stuff. He's like, listen, if the engine's not clean, it's not going to pass emissions for anybody. What's the point? JR's like, oh, I don't care about any of that stuff.
Right.
Pretty much. Well, I mean, he doesn't say that, but that's what he's thinking, you know? So Sid says, no, because that was the whole point of the engine in the first place, was to be more environmentally friendly. Hello?
Right.
Okay. Now, on the way home in the limousine, we have JR and Abby. And Abby pretty much just says, hey, you know, I think I'm going to talk to Gary and maybe we'll figure out a way to patent Sid's engine without his knowledge. How about that?
So shady. The next day, we've got Sid and Gary conversing again about the whole situation, and it's pretty much a done deal that Sid does not want to go into business and do this.
That was Gary's advice as well, that he not do that. So that's all good. But then I think Karen arrives and she's inquiring about this engine that, you know, suddenly all these people are so interested in that she was not showing interest prior. She's like, why don't you explain it to me? And he's like, oh, I'm too busy. The plans are in the office. You can go take a look.
You can go look, whatever I got to go.
Let me know what you think. Right.
Right.
So she goes to go do that. And then the plans aren't there. Right. And she asks Marcia where the plans are, something like that. And she does, though, see Abby returning, coming in out of JR's limousine with a poster tube.
Oh, that's right.
So she's like, plans missing, Abby with poster tube. Okay, She's on to Abby, okay?
Right. She's on.
Abby then is in the car with Gary, and she tells him, oh my gosh, Sid is crazy for not letting JR patent these plans. He's going to lose all of his hard work, potential earnings. Someone's going to steal that idea. So she's trying to convince Gary that they should just patent the plans without Sid's knowledge. And he's like, no, that's not a good idea. However, he does start to kind of listen to what Abby's saying. So there is a scene later on back at the Fairgates where he does try to convince Sid, hey, maybe you should patent that engine sooner rather than later. Even if it's not finished, let's at least get the idea protected because you could lose millions of dollars and what have you. He's like, no, I cannot do it. The engine's not ready. Please let me have this time. I need to do it at my own pace. So he leaves. And then Karen comes in and she also recommends that actually maybe you should patent that engine, Sid, before someone takes advantage of you. And she even suggests that someone like Abby could be taking advantage of you because she brings up the fact that she saw her with the poster tube getting out of JR's
And you
limousine.
know, Sid does not like anybody calling out his sister Abby. He thinks
as we
she
have
could do no wrong.
Previously established, right?
Even though Sid doesn't think that Abby's guilty, it definitely must have got him thinking because he confronts Abby at her house. He asks her flat out if she had taken his plans for the engine. And so she has the poster tube sitting there on the side. So she pulls out this art print. The plans are in there, but she's just pulled out an art print. No, I had this and I was going to give this to you or whatever.
Right. It's a real damning scene for the Abby character. This is
Sure
the moment
is.
in the season where I'm like, oh my gosh, you are terrible because she's completely outright lying to her brother of all people, let alone doing all this other stuff.
And especially knowing what we know, what happens. It's not a good way to leave something.
No, it is not.
You're going to have, if that's
No,
it.
it's not. Sid is emboldened by this sleight of hand that she's produced for him. And so when she goes back home and Karen wants to talk about this again, Sid tells her what she actually was doing with that poster tube. And he says, so this is it. Case closed. I believe her.
Well,
Okay, so then we have the next day at Knots Landing Motors, and we have once again Abby trying to convince Gary that this is what they need to do. And Gary says, I'm sorry, I cannot do this. This is, of course, also based off of what Valine had said to him as well. She's like, you got to let Sid do this on his own time, right? So when he says, I'm sorry to Abby, then she says, well, I'm sorry too.
Yeah.
Which is sort of intimating that she's going to do whatever the hell she wants to
Yeah.
do. And we know this happens because in the last scene of the episode, she is celebrating the delivery of those plans to JR. Of course, nobody knows this but the audience. And then Karen is going over there because Jeff has possibly kidnapped the children. So she's going there to deliver that news to Abby. Abby doesn't really want to hear about it, but of course she like rustles her out of her satin sheets. And then Karen is left alone with JR and she's like, what are you doing here? What is really going on here in Knots Landing? And JR says something like, well, a little business, a little pleasure. I didn't do so well with your husband, but I seem to be making off better with your sister-in-law.
Woo!
Well, it's innuendo, but it's
Right.
also, again, fueling that suspicion that something is going on behind all their backs.
Yes.
And it's going to come to a crescendo in the finale episode
It
that we're
is
going to get to right now.
It's crescendoing.
This is called Squeeze Play.
Squeeze
Finale
Play.
Episode. Finally, this is written by John Plachette, and the director is Joseph B. Wallenstein, who is also producer on Knots Landing. So let's get into it. The very first scene of the episode is another lunch here between Gary and Frank and Roy are back.
The gangsters are back.
Okay.
And this time they're at a seafood restaurant.
Yes,
Well, steak
they
and surf and
are.
turf.
Yes, they are. And I'm telling you right now, when we watched this episode again last night in preparation for this podcast, it all just clicked into
Well, it was
view.
weird because I don't think we ever noticed it before, but I noticed immediately. I looked at the ceiling,
Right.
and I kept seeing these wooden whale motif
like they're in the
things.
ballasts of the
So it made me
supports.
think, well, the whaler,
Then
you know.
then we see the mosaic with this huge
this
whale
beautiful
motif.
mosaic that has a whale,
And then
it
we
looks
see
like
the whales that are like
Yeah.
the condiment holders on each of the tables in this restaurant. We always marveled at how beautiful this restaurant was.
And then the other thing is this: immediately I'd be like, "Oh, let's go there.
yeah, exactly.
Can we
Yeah,
go
yeah,
there
yeah.
like next week?"
So the name of the restaurant is Admiral Riste's, and it is actually in Rancho Palos Verdes, which is code for Knots Landing. Let's be honest. That is where kind of geographically Knots Landing is supposed to be, right?
Right. But here's the sad part: it's closed. It closed in 2020.
it's so sad.
So we're bummed. I guess the original guy who owned it, he passed away in like 2019.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
for whatever
yeah, yeah.
reason, it didn't carry on.
Up until its closing, a lot of it still looked the same.
And
They
that
still have those little
mosaic
things on the
is
table.
the mosaic is still
Yeah.
there. It looks great. So I mean, I'm sad I didn't get to go there.
Me too.
That's
If you want to buy a
bummer.
T-shirt, you still can.
Yeah, you can, I'm sure you can find it on Etsy.
But what was really interesting to me, again, having just watched, again, the We're Not Done Yet podcast or listened to it regarding John Plachette and him talking about this storyline, how he was really part of creating this possible exit for Don Murray, should he not want to return for season 3. It all made sense that here we are at a restaurant where a whale is the theme. And back in the other episode that John Plachette wrote, episode 4, Chance of a Lifetime, they talked about Moby Dick in that first scene, and it made kind of like this big impression, but for no reason.
Right. Didn't make sense, but now if you're in the writing standpoint of knowing.
The allegories in Moby Dick, they kind of center on the thoughts of like good versus evil, and also events that are either fated or brought upon by free will. And
Right.
so if you connect these two, the Chance of a Lifetime, the scene where Moby Dick is first mentioned, and that is the same scene where Gary's talking about the Orchid Cab Company, and here we are now sitting down with the Orchid Cab Company again in a restaurant where the theme is Moby Dick. We can say that Sid's journey is perhaps fated, or is it set upon by his own free will? And we'll talk about it at the end. Okay. But here we are in this restaurant where there's another little funny throwback to an earlier episode where Gary is at dinner with the Fairgates and he doesn't know what he's eating. Is it pork? Is it steak? And there's like, no, it's veal. And then here we have Roy saying, "Oh, Gary, you should have had the veal," because I guess he didn't like the way his steak was prepared. So that was really funny. But the main meat and potatoes of the scene, if you will, is the fact that Gary is saying to these guys, "Hey, listen, we're getting a lot of heat from some of our customers that apparently the FBI is sniffing around because there is word on the street that these parts that you sold us are stolen.
Hot.
I mean,
hot.
hello.
They're
were
hot, baby.
1/3 the wholesale cost. What did you think, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, that's where the chop shop started.
Right. So they say, oh, don't worry about it, Gary. It's all going to blow over. Don't even worry about it. That's not even don't even concern your pretty
They're
little
not
face.
after you. They're after us.
Right, right.
You know?
Now, what's interesting also is that we have Karen, Val, and Laura. They're also in the restaurant across the way. And I guess Laura's got a new
and they're all
charge card.
Right. And they're all a little tipsy. It's a business card. Clearly,
They spot Gary. They come on over, and they're like, oh, wow. And then it was funny. There's a really funny look on Roy's face when he sees these three ladies that know Gary. They can kind of decipher that one of them must be his wife, right?
Oh, right. And what's funny is they go to Karen. They say, oh, you must be Gary's wife, which I thought was really funny.
Yeah.
She's his spiritual wife.
But Val is his real wife, right?
Right.
And so then I think they kind of suspect that Val doesn't know anything about this, right? I think it's Frank who's just like, hey, Gary, you just need to play it cool, play it dumb. To which I thought, well, he won't have any problem with that.
Yeah, I thought the same thing too when they said that.
So they're like, just he's like, I'll keep my mouth shut or something like that. Or I don't know how I'll be able to keep my mouth shut. And then Frank, again, heavy-handed gaslighty. He's like, well, we've never had anybody else have a problem keeping their mouth shut.
Ooh.
All right, now back at home, we have Karen drunk after this lunch with Laura and the girls, whatever. And there's a moment where Abby and Sid are preparing banana splits.
Yeah, they're making banana splits.
Because Abby's always eating junk food, even though she is like the most
Well, I
fit,
mean,
gorgeous
why
lady,
wouldn't
right?
you want to have a little banana split after you've been drinking a few glasses of wine?
No, that was Abby having
Oh,
it.
okay.
Karen did not want the banana split.
She didn't want the banana split. Okay.
But she does ask, I ran into Gary today. Who is he dining with, having this fancy lunch? Isn't that supposed to be the president of the company's position?
Oh, and I think that Abby covers really quickly. She says the one name, Frank, but then she says somebody else.
The billboard guys. The
billboard
guys,
people.
Right. So that is still, again, lying to Sid. The side story, B story of all this is that Abby's ex-husband, Jeff, has taken the kids for like longer than he's supposed to. So what Sid says to Abby is that maybe you should take the day off tomorrow and focus on that, and Karen will come in and take care of that accounting or whatever needs to happen. And I think Abby's a little pissed. She's like, I thought I was indispensable. So this sets the ball rolling into a direction that is going to uncover everything going on at Knots Landing Motors, because right away we have Karen kind of frazzled on the phone. She's looking for a purchase order for some customer who's calling in, and she spots this dude outside talking to Gary. She goes up to Gary and she says, hey, where does Abby keep the receipts? And he says, she keeps the books in the safe. And Karen says, oh, well, what's the code for the safe? And she says it in a manner that is kind of stepping on Gary's toes. A little bit like, I'm the wife of the boss, so give me this code.
Right.
But Gary's like, we have someone right here.
Yeah, I've got a customer here. I can't deal with this right now.
So she's like, oh. And you can see there's a suspicion going on, like, who is this guy? But he covers, this gentleman there, big smiley guy, covers saying that, like, I guess he's looking for a car or whatever. But Karen is not buying it at all, because I think she saw like a passing of a card or something.
Now, is that guy, was that Sal?
Agent Sal Maggio.
Agent Sal Maggio. Okay. So Agent Sal Maggio works for the FBI.
Right.
So he's actually there speaking to Gary, questioning Gary.
Right.
So, of course.
There's a scene right after that, I think, where Sid's there and Karen's immediately saying, yep, I think something's going on. I think it's the FBI. She's like, I don't know who it is. Whoever it is, there's somebody official that is asking questions about something going on in Knots Landing Motors. And she says to him, I think Gary is not telling you something. And Sid's still covering for these people. He's still got the blinders on. He's like, if it was really something important, Gary would tell us. There's a really great moment there, I don't know if you noticed, where they go into the car and they pull out, and then the car behind them raises up on these hydraulics, revealing this dude, right?
Right, this weird-looking guy.
Shady-looking mechanic we've never seen before. He actually looks like my great-grandfather.
Is that Tom?
To be perfectly honest.
Is that his name, Tom?
Okay, his name is Tom on the little label there, right, on his thing. Now, it's interesting. He is played by this gentleman whose name is T.K. Harris. Mm-hmm. And I looked to see what his other credits were. He only has 2 other credits, and they're both Knots Landing.
Oh.
So he appeared in season 1, I believe, as the derelict under the pier that Gary steals the beer bottle from.
Right.
And then he appears in this same role one more time in season 3. So you know where this is going.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
Yeah, it's a loose thread here from season 2.
So Sid and Karen are driving home from Knots Landing Motors, and Karen is speaking about Abby and the suspicions she has with the books. And then Sid gets really...
Well, because Sid's like, oh, since Abby started working there, we've been making money hand over fist.
Yeah.
And Karen's like, well, why? Why are you making money hand over fist all of a sudden now that Abby's there? Like, what's going on? Because the car industry is in a huge slump and the fuel prices are so high and da-da-da-da-da. So what's going on here? And I think he turns it around and says, oh, Karen, you're just jealous. And Karen's like, who? Of Abby? Or Gary? Or something like that. She says, both of them, because they have a job and you got a taste of it today and you're jealous. And Karen's just like,
it's just ridiculous.
My God.
Yeah, this is one of those moments where I just felt like Sid was not so sympathetic either. You sit there going...
So many times.
Well, I mean, yeah,
season,
he's become very, like, there are a lot of jerk moments.
Yeah.
And that was one of...
Old-fashioned, kind of just these, like,
blinders.
Right. Now, they're heading home, because remember, it's only about a minute away from Knots Landing Motors.
And you can see they just enter, Seaview Circle. Not Crystal Lair Place, yes. But you can see it. And then, of course, there's a car on the side.
I think Karen spots that guy that she saw talking to Gary, and she says, oh my God, the FBI's here. Yeah. So then I think Sid, like, turns back around to go talk to them, basically, and they're already gone. So we can now see that the heat is on, and hopefully we're going to get some answers. Following day, we have Gary and Abby. We'll just quickly go through this. We've already talked about it. This is that moment where Gary tells Abby that he's pretty sure that Karen is onto them. And she's like, oh, we need to practice our cover stories, right? And then we have Karen going to Richard, and she enlists him to go into Knots Landing Motors at night to go through the books.
Which was the whole caper.
Love that.
Remember that? That was fun.
Love
that.
That.
Cute.
And then they look through the books and they find out that, something's going on because there's like embezzlement in reverse. So they're making all this money that they shouldn't be making. Why? Because they had purchased the prices for these parts at a much lower cost and they're selling them and whatever at a much higher cost.
2 sets of books.
Right. You know? So at this point, they confront Sid with the information, and then Sid calls Gary because he wants him to have a meeting that night. And then Karen asks Sid, oh, do you want me to call Abby as well? And Sid's sort of like crestfallen. He's like, yeah, I guess you got to call Abby.
Yeah.
So there's this big meeting and everything is laid out on the table. Basically, Gary says everything that's gone on, but then Abby tries to like sugarcoat her involvement, like really tries to weasel
I didn't know what was going on with the money.
Right. And Gary's like, you're lying. She's lying. Karen says she's lying. Ultimately, the driving force of this scene is that Richard tells Sid that the FBI is going to want to prosecute the organized crime element of this racket going on here, right? They're not interested in you guys, the Knots Landing Motors. Then Sid says, okay, Gary, you and I have to go to the FBI together, which Val is not pleased about, by the way, because she doesn't know about any of this either.
Right. She's totally out of the loop.
So as everybody's leaving, we still have Abby just turning the screw and just lying back and forth. Oh, I'm so sorry. All this is going on. Meanwhile, she's ready to sell her brother out with the whole thing about the engine patent, which never even comes up, to be honest.
Right.
It never even comes up in this whole situation. So Karen is so upset, not only that Abby is such a in this moment, but she's also upset that Sid continues to remain loyal to her even after all the times that she has given Sid warnings about her. So she's pissed off.
No, I don't blame her.
Storms upstairs, doesn't even want to look at him. And this leaves poor Sid to sort of cower and like physically bury his face in his hands in the couch and just be like, oh my God, what have I let happen to my business and maybe to my marriage, really, right? Why have I put all my trust in my sister? Oh my gosh. Woo! Okay.
It was a doozy. It was a real doozy. It's been getting stressful.
Stress City.
Yeah.
All right, so now we have the next scene. We finally have Gary and Sid meeting with the FBI agents. We have Mr. Sal Maggio, and then the other guy's name is Bonners. They've got their mugshots, and they're looking through them, and Gary is able to identify who these people are. Once Gary's able to identify who Frank and Roy are, then the FBI agents are like, oh yeah, these are the guys that are active in several states, as well as Mexico and Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So
they get around.
They're kind of telling them how this all comes into play, how they steal the cars, strip them for parts, yada, 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 yada. the FBI agents ask Gary to cooperate and give them all the information of the people that they sold the parts to. He says, yes, absolutely. And then they say, Sid, we have a special job for you as well.
Right. Now, this is kind of an interesting, and I guess we'll talk about it a little later, right? Fate versus free will.
Exactly.
Because he has a choice.
He has a choice. Now, they say to him in that moment, like, don't worry, we will never do anything that's going to put you in harm's way. But he really maybe should have talked to a lawyer at that point before he agreed to do anything. Because what he agrees to do is do this sort of sting operation where they're going to entrap these guys into admitting what they do.
Right. Wearing a wires.
To Admiral Risty's restaurant. Okay. Yeah. And it's kind of a funny scene because Sid doesn't do a great job of, like, pretending that he's a baller.
Oh, no, it's funny because he's acting all gangstery and then his Boston accent is really coming out.
Yeah.
It's very like, it's just like.
Gary looks fantastic in this scene. He's wearing this tie. Richard wore this tie in season 1 as well. And I remember it a lot because you see it in Knots Landing for many seasons. And my dad had the same tie. I probably borrowed it from him. Anyway, what's happening here is that Sid's pretending like, he knew all along that these guys were shady. And Gary even says, oh, yeah, we made him pretend that he was against all this so that we could get a better deal. And it appeared to have worked.
I would say this, highly unbelievable. If I were the gangsters, I'd be like.
Suddenly these guys are really dim. Especially, Frank's always been dim, but not Roy.
Yeah, it was a stretch. It was a little.
The ploy here is that Sid wants to buy some of these stolen cars. And in fact, he wants to get a 911 SC.
Yeah, Porsche.
Laura wants to give Richard a car for his birthday. That's a John Plachette moment in there. He wants the Porsche, right?
He wants that Porsche.
John Plachette.
Well, remember, he's always looking at those cars, right? He's always intrigued.
Exactly. The dream car.
The dream car. Flashy.
So there it is. It's set into motion that they're going to get this car for him. And then they pan over and you see that the 2 FBI agents are listening in the next banquet, right? So then the next scene is they're putting the wire onto Gary, and this is that moment right before he and Val have their big showdown in season 2 where she's so disappointed that he never came to her with all this information. We don't know what's going to happen with them. But we do then have this real, again, going back to this noir moment, this kind of more gritty tone supplied by John Plachette there. This is the sting operation, right, where we have Bonners and Sal in the car and they're overhearing what's going on. And then we have Gary and Sid and they're waiting for the cars to be, because I guess they ordered 2 cars, right?
But they ordered 2 cars and they've got cash ready to go.
Yeah.
So they're going to do a handoff.
So Frank and Roy come in the 2 cars. They're super excited. And, but then there's this moment where Sid goes to get the money and Frank thinks he's got a gun. And so he pulls a gun.
Yeah, he pulls a gun on him.
And there's all this drama. And the FBI agents are in the car like, oh my God. Nobody move. It's all this kind of stuff, right? It's like not Knots Landing. You know what I mean? It's like Columbo.
Yeah, it's like a cop show.
Some cop show,
from the
right?
80s.
Okay. Which we heard that John Plachette actually worked on some other cop shows of writing for the time, which Stephen Bochco, you could imagine. Okay. So then he's like, no, don't you want to get paid? So they hand over the money and they count the money and then they say, okay, we're going to go take the cars for a test drive. I guess this was kind of like a plot device to get both of them away so that there would be no opportunity for them to pull out the gun and whatever, right? So I guess there's this little brief moment where the guy's like, oh, yeah, can we go back to the hotel? Because I'd love to catch the late movie. They're playing Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
I thought that was funny. That was definitely a John Plachette line.
Totally.
Okay.
But of course, that stall is the perfect time to have the FBI and all the police cars come in, swarm them, and nab them up, finally. So
but it's not over yet.
It's not over yet.
No.
Because it's organized crime and the tendrils reach out far, right?
I think what happens is we have a time jump. Probably at least a few weeks.
Yeah.
Or longer.
Yeah. I guess there's mail being dropped off and the
Yeah.
FBI agents are like positioned at the Fairgates and they go out to get the mail and Karen's like, how long are we going to go on living like this?
Right.
Like prisoners in our own home.
Right.
Because,
so we don't see, though, how much they've been prisoners,
Right.
but obviously they're paranoid, right?
Right. And this allows for kind of some exposition of like what's going to go down because Richard says, okay, well, I guess there's a hearing the following week. They don't really need Sid for that, but he will be needed to testify when the case goes to trial like months down the line. And of course, Karen is super concerned about this because how are they all going to live like this for 6 months? And that's when Richard says, oh, yeah, well, you shouldn't have helped out the FBI with that sting.
Right.
Because if you had let Gary do it all, then he'd be on the hook for all this.
And doesn't he mention that you still don't have to testify? You could go back and say you don't want to testify because they've got Gary's testimony really will be stronger. So he's given the opportunity again, really.
Don't you think, though, that Saint Sid inside, he wants to be the key witness?
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Oh, of course.
What Richard says is, oh, yeah, they'll go to trial, whatever. They'll go to jail. They'll be out in 18 months, but at least the operation will be shut down. Isn't that good enough? And he's like, no, it's not good enough. But of course, Karen doesn't want him to be part of this either. So she's also imploring him to not get involved. But what happens then is that Michael comes home, remember? And he's with the FBI agent or whatever. And he's like, hey, Mom, aren't I still on that special diet for my hyperactivity? Like, why did you give me a candy bar? And she's like, I didn't give you that.
Yes, of course. Now
she looks to Sid. She looks to Sal.
Freaked out. I don't think they're really doing anything, but it's like,
I think
it's
Sal
intimidation.
Sal says to Sid later on, like, because he's like, why do we still have all this security if they're still able to get to us? He's like, oh, don't worry, they're just bluffing. He said if they wanted to kill you, they would have done it already.
Right.
Cut to
Shady Tom is back in the garage.
Right.
He's telling Sid that the car that he's been working on is still not repaired. And Sid is like, oh, don't worry.
He's like, I'll take it home and...
I'll take it home and look at it.
It's the muffler issue or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
And so then I think it's Marcia who calls him away because Karen's on the phone. That leaves Tom alone in the car. And so he moves from the muffler to the front of the car where we see him fiddling with the brakes. He cuts the brake fluid or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's a brake line, I think.
Yeah. So this is not good. This is
1-800 no brakes.
Yes. We have one more scene between, I guess it's Gary and Sid, where Sid asks Gary once again, did Abby really not know anything about what happened or something? Or, what was her involvement?
And Gary lies.
Gary covers for her.
He says, no, she didn't know. So that sucks.
Yeah.
These last interactions, I guess we know who the bad people are in Knots Landing, right?
That's what I say. Was Sid sacrificed to make way for badness on Knots Landing?
He probably was.
So we have disillusioned Sid, and he takes the car that I guess Tom has been working on, and Sal had come with him. So now Sal's going to go with him back home to the cul-de-sac. And suddenly we are out there on the cliffs of Knots Landing, which if you remember back in the pilot episode, this is the only other time we've seen this kind of drive with Karen and Sid in the beginning and the end of that episode. It's established that that is Rancho Palos Verdes. And didn't we even see a sign that we thought maybe that was...
I think it said Marineland because, Marineland was still open there, which is now Terranea. We are pretty certain that that's probably that area there.
So, my friends, if you don't know what happens... The brakes go out.
The brakes go out, and then we just see this.
Well, wait. First, Sal says, slow down. He's like, I can't. The brakes have gone out.
He's pumping the brakes, and there's nothing.
And there are some people, running across the street with a surfboard. And so he, swerves to miss them, and then... It's the end. It's very abrupt, right? It's very abrupt. Can you imagine if you were watching that in 1981, what you'd be thinking?
Oh, you'd be really shocked because that's something that didn't really happen too often where they would kill a main character off.
Right. John Plachette talked about that,
Right.
actually.
We were listening to the podcast.
In the We're Not Done Yet
We're Not
podcast.
Done Yet. And that was what was kind of an interesting thing, what he said. It's really super clever because it's like, if you do that, then the audience is always going to be waiting for a main character to
Anytime something like that happens, the stakes
off.
are high that you may lose the character. So it keeps everything much
keeps everybody
more
engaged.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a very good job. And now, again, what we know from the backstory, either from talking to Claudia or in this other interview we saw with John, was that Don Murray wanted to leave Knots Landing.
Yeah.
So he
was tired of driving from Santa Barbara down to L.A.
That's right. So this was kind of like their way to get you closer to that end goal. Now, there was still an out, I guess, because he does appear, spoiler alert, in season 3 for a couple episodes, but there was a possible out if he wanted to leave, and then if he wanted to stay, then they could have had him stay.
And let's face it, at that point, you're only into season 2. You never know how long it's going to go on for. He wouldn't know.
That's true.
He didn't know it was going to be on for 14 years.
I think I heard later on that he was actually disappointed that he left when he did, because I guess he had tried some other pilots that did not go well.
Yeah, I think we saw some of those on those Robert Retro Rewind. They would show some shows that didn't make it.
The quality was not as high as Knots Landing.
And listen, I know as an actor, you would love to have a show that was on for 14
Absolutely.
years.
Listen to what Ted Shackelford says. Ted Shackelford was I had that job and I kept that job and I enjoyed that job.
That's a good gig. It's a steady paycheck.
All right, so now that we are finished with all of these episodes at this point, let's talk about Sid for a little bit here. Let's ask the question that is brought up by the allegories of Moby Dick here. Was this fated, or did this happen with free will? Like, who's to blame for Sid's accident, this ultimate cliffhanger of all cliffhangers, the literal cliffhanger in season 2? Is it Linda working on this engine? No, because that wasn't the car. No. And that doesn't really come into play. Is it Abby? Is Abby responsible?
She has a partial responsibility, I think. She's got,
I would say Abby's involvement, though, really more so, is about Gary's connection to the JR and the engine and the patent. I don't know if she has as much skin in the game with the Orchid Cab.
No, it's more Gary.
She did do the bookkeeping.
Right.
But anybody could have done the bookkeeping.
Yeah, Gary is more culpable for this. Okay. But, Sid also should have some responsibility too.
Why?
Because he refused to really see what was going on. And I think that's...
Why else?
And also because he didn't have to insert himself into the situation.
He didn't have to pick up the hitchhiker.
That's true.
If he didn't pick up the hitchhiker, perhaps the business wouldn't have fallen off at Knots Landing.
That's true.
Causing Gary to look for other ways to improve
the moral of the story, and I think we've all learned this anyway, but, back in 1980, people didn't know it.
Don't pick up a
hitchhiker. Too many murder shows I've seen with the hitchhikers. No, not a good idea.
So again, going back to this Moby Dick, is it fated? Is it free will? I do think that Sid had some hand in his ultimate demise, and maybe the backstory of Don Murray not wanting to be on the show anymore is a parallel.
Yeah.
He has something to do with his exit off the show as well. Let's be honest, right? Yeah. I mean, because according to Claudia Lano, the producers didn't want him to go. They didn't want to lose him.
Now, it's not like the later episodes, seasons where people get written off.
Right.
It's a different thing. So
money reasons, yeah.
Right. He wanted out.
I think what's really interesting about this whole Sid storyline, and we talked about this in the Karen and the Kids episode, how we felt like it was sort of a character degradation for Sid. We did not like him in season 2 because of the choices that he was making with his family. He was so rigid. He was so backwards. He was so burying his head in the sand and never looking for solutions, right? But if you really look at it, again, just like we were talking about the Gary and Val, how well crafted everything is, it makes sense for the middle part of the season for Sid to be caught up in the drama with Michael, caught up in the drama with Eric, caught up in the drama with Abby and the custody battle, caught up with Linda and this little dalliance. He had to be distracted so that he didn't see what was going on right under his nose.
Oh, yeah.
It all makes sense now, right? Again, the timing of all these episodes, even though sometimes we're like, oh, this is weird that it's in this order, it all makes sense. They got that Bible at the beginning of the season where they know where everything is going to slot into place.
They know exactly how they're going to slot it all in and arrange it for you as the viewer. So that's a good point.
And I think that also, maybe him being unlikable in those situations with his kids, it does also help the audience to not maybe mourn or miss him as much as they might if it had been a character who was
Right, if they kept him goody-goody the whole time. Because he
was super goody-goody the first season.
Yeah, if they had kept it on that same trajectory and then he died, then they might get so upset that they wouldn't watch the show again.
Right, and I do think that also it does contribute to this kind of Moby Dick allegory here where it's fate versus free will, because if Sid has a part in his own demise, it's also easier to sort of excuse it.
Yeah.
Anyway, good job, everybody. Good job writing all that stuff.
You know what I say? Oh, heavy. Oh, heavy, man.
Heavy. Okay,
man.
Now it is time to finally come in for a landing on these 4 featured episodes, as well as the entire season 2 of Knots Landing as a whole. We are going to get down to the lowest point and find out just how highbrow or lowbrow these episodes are. So let's go through the 4 featured episodes first. What did you give Hitchhike Part 1?
Hitchhike Part 1, I gave it a 3.
3, okay. Remember, it's 1 to 5, 1 being lowbrow, 5 being highbrow. I gave this a 3.5. I will say that my favorite sequence of this particular episode was that intercutting of Sid getting arrested to Diana performing on stage. Excellent
I did
job.
love that. That
really,
was
really
great.
And just a really cool tone overall. Carrying over into episode 2, what did you give that on the Browmeter?
That I give a 3.5.
Okay, so you raised.
I reversed it.
I went down. That one, I not quite a 3. I gave that a 2.95. Something about it just didn't quite feel as polished. All right, now moving on to episode 12. This is Sid and Linda out in the desert.
I gave that a 2.75.
Oh, wow. I'm 2.8. Very in sync.
Okay, that's good. All right, we're close.
Okay, and then the finale, which was Squeeze Play, episode 18.
I gave it a 2.5.
Ooh, low.
I know, it's low on that one. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I gave that one a 3.5. I really liked the caper between Karen and Richard going to get the books. And again, bringing up that gritty tone towards the end. And of course, the great cliffhanger, which must have been mind-blowing to those people back in 1981. Okay, now, through the magic of whatever, TV, but on YouTube,
Magic of
podcasts and streaming, we are now going to tabulate all the scores from all 18 episodes of Knots Landing Season 2. The final score for Knots Landing Season 2 is 2.9.
That's pretty good.
Well, it's a drop from season 1, which is what we kind of predicted.
Yeah.
Once it's becoming more serialized, it's going to be a little bit more saucy and less,
So was your number close to my number overall?
This was weird. Your tabulation, your average, and my average were almost the exact same.
Okay.
Isn't
that's
that
a thing.
weird?
There's probably certain little things that I like better on one episode than you do or whatever. But that ultimately is good, though. That means we're pretty in sync.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Obviously, it's been a hugely long episode. I hope you have stuck with us. I'm glad if you had. Thank you if you have. And if you haven't already liked us or commented, you can do that now as well.
Yes.
We do actually have a letters from the sack that I'm going to quickly go through right here. This is from YouTube user Nancy Erickson 4263. This was on the interview we did with Claudia Lano. She said, I see all those records on your shelves. Can you do a little segment about your collection? To which I respond, sure, but not right now.
Not right now. We ain't got time right now.
But
this is a long episode.
If you didn't know, we are also DJs. Did you know that? Well, you can find us at DB Discotheque on Instagram. We'll put the little thing there. We are probably going to do a Dreaming Room, we hope, which is our kind of online Twitch DJ show. So if you are interested, we will play some of our records. And the ones you see in that little shot there on the interview,
that's only a small piece.
Small portion of the whole collection.
There's a lot of different genres up here.
Now, if you would like to send us a message, you may do so on YouTube, but you can also send us an email. That is cviewcircle@gmail.com. That is SEE viewcircle@gmail. You can also send us messages on Instagram or on TikTok or on Blue Sky. And we are also doing kind of a shout out. We are looking for international fans of Knots Landing.
Watching from outside the United States.
Could be France.
We'd love to hear
could
from
be
you.
Germany. Could be the UK. Wherever.
Could be Mexico.
Could be anywhere. We want to hear your stories, and it's for a future episode that we're going to do in our season 3 of our podcast. Okay? So we're going to take a little bit of a break. Okay, as we close out season 2 here, we thank you for joining us. We're going to come back with other content. We're going to be returning to Yellow Jackets. You can be assured we have got some ideas.
And who knows, maybe even the Gilded Age might come up. Season 4 of that is coming up. I've just seen little snippets, so I think it's filmed. So that could be really fun.
Intriguing. We are looking forward to it. Again, we want to thank you so much for hanging out with us all throughout Knots Landing Season 2. It has been so much fun.
Yeah, we're having a blast.
So much to chew through. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Let us know what you liked. If you want to see more of those ranking videos.
Yeah.
We should probably shut up. We are just going.
Yeah, we need to shut up.
Okay.
All right. So
we will see you then. Back on the sack. Happy holidays. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.
Bye-bye.